Welcome back. We are going to talk about African Industrialization Day, and with me here is analyst Malam Yushao Aliyu to discuss this. Good morning and welcome to Business Focus.
Thank you and happy Television Day.
Thank you. Today is Television Day, and yesterday was the Industrialization Day, African Industrialization Day. And Malam Yushao Aliyu, can you give us an overview of what that entails for Africa and Nigeria in particular?
The African nations, Africa has a very long history as far as trade is concerned. Before colonization, before the coming of the Royal Niger Company and several other European companies, there was trade in between Africa and other continents. But unfortunately, after some economic disturbances in the region, most of African leaders resolved to trading their own people to slavery. But however, when Europeans came, they came with a lot of investment that has helped the Industrial Revolution of the Europeans, thereby putting more emphasis on certain raw materials production that include cocoa, cotton, granite. All these are raw materials for the European Industrial Revolution. Okay. However, if you are to look at history of trade, industrialization in Africa, it's just a period between 1900 to 1950. This is the period to which Africa tries as much as possible to moderate its own industrial policies. But most of the policies between 1900 to 1950 were European-based. Okay. It was after independence from 1960 onward that Africa now decide to bring certain policies that will help African continent or African nations to be industrialized. Looking at the size of the engagement of Africans, it started in 1990 when some African leaders decided to hold a meeting in Accra in Ghana to look at best ways to industrialize Africa, because if Africa is to grow and to also meet the challenges of the entire global economy, Africa must be industrialized. So, but on that particular moment, Nigeria was not even part of it because Nigeria was under military rule. So that was the beginning of industrialization in Africa. And till today, we have seen several nations that have succeeded. Egypt is doing well. Yesterday, in G20 summit, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu emphasized on the Egyptian performance, especially in developing the rail sector. Germany has invested so much. I think they are engaging into 2,000 kilometers of railway just to help Egypt to achieve certain economic goals that include industrialization. But industrialization as it is a concept in economics which give emphasis on how nations can develop industrially. That is, looking at various engagement in industrial performance, whether it is manufacturing, whether it is agriculture, in fact, all aspects of investment. But South Africa today and Southern Africa is leading as far as industrialization is concerned.
Okay. So what's the significance of the African Industrialization Day? And it's November 20th was chosen to hold that.
November 20th was chosen, and it was proposed by the Africans themselves, but adopted by United Nations Industrial Development Organization, UNIDO. Yeah. This is the organ under United Nations that is coordinating industrial activity around the globe. But Africa perfectly is left behind. It's left behind because our technological breakthrough is hindered by a lot of hindrances. Our culture, our political system, our attitude. But we have one of the best brands that are helping. If you take energy, for instance, Germany was able to achieve so much from Nigerians. Professor Inaji was once an expert who has given his time and talent to the German industrial revolution in the energy sector. So I think today the perspective we are to look is to look at areas that we have advantage. because if you are to put your investment, especially for industrialization, you look where you have an advantage and invest in it and create special economic zones. In each nation, there should have been special economic zones. These economic zones, certain industries must be empowered to make production and to be assisted to be expanded, and even not only expanded, but it has to be sustained.
So that's leveraging on your strength.
Yes. If you take, for instance, the industrialization, you cannot industrialize if you don't have a functional steel industry. You cannot, because you require steel for many industrial purposes. The fabrications of engines, fabrications of a lot of issues. So if you check Africa as a continent, it has a lot of raw materials for that purpose. If we are to go also to even automobile industry, if you are to put a lot of money into that, there is a bank created by the Africans themselves. So the emphasis on November 20th is to sit down and look at the opportunities and potentials. Two things. Where are the opportunities and who has the potentials? And then how do we achieve? What, when, and how? Fundamentally in economics, you must understand what, when, and how. If you are to industrialize in automobile, which of African continent has an advantage of steel industry and human resources? For instance, Nigeria has an advantage. We have Innocent Motors here in Nigeria, and they are doing well. Remember that, like we said, if we are to look at industrialization as a concept under the African Treaty that is witnessed by UNIDO, you have to look at sectoral performance, especially with the contribution of government concern. Nigeria, Egypt, Ghana, Rwanda today is also competing. So if we put all this into perspective, that marking of yesterday is just an opportunity for industrialists to have better opportunity, to look for better opportunities, and then call for better cooperation. Industrialization, like I mentioned, if you want to develop, like I said earlier, energy sector, if you are to develop, you have to bring experts. That is the first thing. Then you call for investment. Then you call for policies. After calling for policies, then you go on assessment. After assessment, then you now go to field and start. And today, we have good industrialists to be reckoned with in Africa in all aspects of investment. The industrialists include Aliko Dangote, who has invested in cement production. Before independence, cement is imported to the entire African continent. But after independence, like the likes of Dangote came into and are doing better. So if you go to ABUJA or any production site, you see how production is going on. But only a problem that is giving much difficulty is networking of the production. That is all. And that is the same thing that applies to the steel industry that I mentioned earlier. If Africans should look for steel, Nigeria can supply over 40% of the required steel for the African use. Nigeria can supply over 80% of the uranium for African use. So you have all the potentials in the entire Africa, and that is why marking that day will now make Africans to understand. And that's the same thing we are doing today, to educate the entire Africans, those who are following us, include Nigerians and non-Nigerians. But it's a Nigerian production. So if it is a Nigerian production, industrialists are listening to us. You can be an international industrialist. You can also be a domestic industrialist. It depends on how you adjust yourself or you look at the policies on ground and you now make your intervention.
Okay. So now, how has industrialization contributed to economic growth in Africa? You mentioned Egypt. So is there other countries or other examples?
Exactly. If you mention industrialization, there is no way you mention industrialization without Nigeria in Africa. Like I told you, the largest steel company, which has over 90% capacity is located in Nigeria. If you check communication industry, South Africa is leading, and that is why today we have conglomerations of company operating in Nigeria. But if you look at other sectors of the economy, like I said, the potentials, the automobile, you have steel production, you have mobile company, you have steel industry, you have rail industry, you have steel industry, you have medium-scale manufacturing companies. So in my own submission, Africa in general, from South Africa to Algeria, to Libya, to Nigeria, to Ghana, all have potentials to be industrialized. But the Europeans are not helping us. They are not helping us because they wanted us to remain raw materials producers or raw material suppliers to their industries, because most of the industries that are located in Europe are looking for their raw materials around Africa in particular. Take, for instance, not energy, take the gas industry as it is, the gas industry. Nigeria is embarking on Ajakuta, Kaduna, Kano gas line production. The essence of that gas line production is to assist Europe to have an alternative source from Russia. So obviously, Africa as it is, we are lacking behind, not just because we don't have the potentials or we don't have the capacity, but because the European model of industrialization is an industrialized situation that did not give room for Africa to expand its own production. They want us to be the end users of their product. They want us to be the suppliers of raw materials. They want to take all the resources, all the raw materials to their industry so that they can keep their jobs. They can also keep their revenues.
So we're saying the Europe, we're saying the colonialists are the bad people, but then we're still blaming them for not helping us. So how does that fit?
You see, you have to be blamed. Any intruder, you have your arrangement. Egypt is a center of civilization. Industrial activities started in Africa, but unfortunately the potential were stolen and exported. But today, there was quest some time ago by Africans to take reparations. That is for the Europeans to pay them. Go to Jos in Plateau State and see how in the course of mining certain mineral resources, how the atmosphere, how the land is devastated. So not only that, if you come only to just look at the oil production in Nigeria, today Nigeria produces above 1 million barrels per day, but we don't refine a single product. What is the mystery? So these are some of the challenges. We paid Skoda to build a refinery, and we paid for Ajakuta to Russians, especially these Ukrainians. They are the ones under former USSR that undertook the project of our steel company. But when they saw the potentials, they now decided to use certain forces to frustrate the performance of that industry, because if you have a steel as large as what is obtained in Ruhr, Westphalia. You know, in Germany, there is a region that is called Ruhr, Westphalia, where their steel is coming, and that is why today, if you don't have German car, you don't have a car, because they have rich history in manipulating and utilization of their raw material, that is steel. And that is why today the entire G20 are meeting also in the same Germany, discussing how probably Africa is going to relate with Germany. And one question that you need to ask yourself, why, if Africa is not important to everyone, why Saudi is calling Africans? Why is India calling all Africans? Why Russia under Putin calling Africans? why is America calling Africa? So you need to know why they are calling you. It's like when probably
it's a wake-up call to you.
It's a wake-up call to you that you have potential, because why are they not inviting Asians?
True.
These are some of the fundamental questions.
Even China is calling Africa.
Yes, no, China is a household name in the entire Africa. There's no house in China that are not paying for one product or the other on daily basis.
True.
Yes, so Africa is an extension of China. But remember, China under Muhammadu Buhari has budgeted over 20 billion US dollars in financial aid and commitment, but that is not enough. What is going to be enough of Africa is to allow us, to give us a peace, to allow us with our own peace, to allow us with our own talent, and to allow us with our industrial policies to work.
Okay. So quickly, let's talk about the challenges. What are the key challenges and opportunities for industrialization in Africa?
The first challenge of Africa is policy. You need to have a good policy on ground, where if you design that based on potential A, B, C, D, you are intending in the next 10 years to have complete steel production in Nigeria. Is the steel industry having the expert? Is the steel industry having the necessary protections security-wise? These are some of the challenges. Another challenge is, where are the resources for industrialization? The Europeans manipulated price and then sell all their product around the globe, and they are making money, and that is why today if you go to any European state, you find you have enough estate for the citizen, you have enough facilities for the citizen, you have enough financial resources for investment for them. So, and that is why today if we are to borrow, Africa don't borrow from African. We are no longer Nigeria. Ghana cannot borrow from Nigeria. Nigeria cannot borrow from Ghana. But Nigeria has to go from Nigeria to China, Ghana to China. These are some of the big challenges of trying to get funding. Another big challenge is security. Nearly in all African states, there is one crisis or the other. In West Africa in particular, there is Boko Haram. And this Boko Haram has killed many potential engineers, doctors, and destroyed facilities. So these are some of the things that probably, if you don't have good security, no matter how good human and capital development that you are achieving, cannot translate to development. So not only that one, there is also potential instability in our political system. Look at what transpired in the Niger Republic recently, the military coup. And when there is military coup, what comes next is sanction. When you are sanctioned, whatever plans you have, if you are on target that you have for the economy, is already distorted. So obviously, you can count number of numerous challenges.
You did not mention corruption. I thought that would be number one on the
corruption
list.
is worldwide. Okay. Corruption is, India is corrupt. It's a corrupt economy, but they are leading, especially in communication. But they are corrupt. Even no nation that is not corrupt.
But some manage it better.
But some manage it better, and some also official corruption, which is, do you understand?
There is official corruption.
Official corruption. Like in China, that does not mean that Chinese are not corrupt in nature, but you cannot go and tamper with their policies. They have their policies, they have their vision, and they have their own target. So in our own, we can have policy today, the next tomorrow we change the policy. And those who are changing the policy, they are not coming with better option of the policy. So we are neither here nor there. These are some of the challenges that is facing Africa. And also, there is the challenge of enough energy requirement, because you cannot go into full industrialization if you don't have the required energy. So if you are battling to generate 3,000 megawatts for an economy of Nigeria, while China is like I said in one of our programs,
it's not in the level of...
It's not even in the level of megawatt. They are
ahead.
They are ahead. So these are some of the big challenges.
We'll go on a short break and we'll soon be back. Do stay with us. Welcome back. We just had a drink of water, and before we left, we were talking about the challenges Africa has about industrialization. And now let's highlight what are the role the private sector play in promoting industrialization in the continent of Africa.
You see, when you speak of private, initially under laissez-faire is a system where government hand in industrialization is off completely. Okay. And that is why today we have in our policies, we opted for a liberalization of our economies, and at the same time making private individuals, no matter where from, can invest. And that is why today our communication in Nigeria is being sponsored by some investors. So if you are to quantify their contribution of private sector, you cannot quantify it easily, because in almost all the sectors they are the real players, and they are doing well. The only thing is that policies of the government that will make them more suitable, and that's where ease of doing business policies must be emphasized, so that if I know I have the capability, I have the potentials, I have the mind, and I have the resources to invest, to grow an industry like cement, for instance, I should be assisted to produce and to leverage my price based on the income grouping of that economy. These are some challenges. That's why the fact that they are playing greater role, but they are allowed to be price takers, because, you know, in a perfect market, you have price takers and you have price seekers. You cannot take the two at a time without manipulating consumer, and because consumer has a lot of preference. If I prefer to be consuming a product of a company A, which means I prepare that against others. So the only way for my consumption to be protected is by government putting the right policies, whereby the company will not be manipulating me or exploiting my own desire to consume its own product. So, but in general, when you look at Africa as a continent, you look at our industrialization capacity, you look at our potential, you realize that without private individuals in operations, Africa cannot succeed. So this, what government can do, what Africa can do, is just to develop policies, and these policies should go beyond ethnicity, nationhood, blah blah blah. What I mean here is that if a Ghanaian has potential to invest in Kano, he should be allowed and he should be protected. And if he is also to produce, people also within that community must also be protected, because that is what mostly the Asian tigers did and succeeded. When you speak of Malaysia, Malaysia is a composition. I have to give this an example. Malaysia is a combination of Malay, the Asians, that is the Indians, the Malay, the Indians, and the indigenous. So, but when they came and understood their capacity, they allow every individual to invest. And that is why the Chinese background, the Malays in China, brought technology from China, brought their expertise from China, and invested in Malaysia. And that's why Malaysia is great today. So, if Nigeria is to grow bigger, barriers must be eliminated. Policies that will allow all operators to be operating on the same scale must be encouraged. And if it is encouraged, government also has to be driving so much of benefit, especially in terms of social cost benefit. If you locate an industry in Abajana, you have to put a school in Abajana. You have to put a hospital in Abajana. From the proceed of that company, it should be helping the common people to go to school and later employ them. These are some of the ways the private sector, though they are the ones determining prices, the government has to regulate general prices. By regulating, it means that there are institutions in charge of looking at standardization of what we produce, looking at the quantification of what we will produce and sell, and then looking at the end users. That is, how much is company A generating and how much company A is paying his workers. and how much company A is paying taxes. But in paying taxes, we don't have to put much emphasis on higher taxes. We look at the production, we sustain the production, and we encourage the production by giving out good policies that will facilitate the development of other companies. You know, what gives hope to an economy is when you have multiple operators. If you have multiple operators, each and every one of them is coming with efficiency, not coming only with efficiency, is coming with branding. You know, you coming with different techniques. You know, some companies in China are labor intensive. Some companies in China are are capital intensive. So any company, any industry you are locating, you should know the location you are putting it. If it is an industry that requires manpower so as to absorb the excess manpower, you allow it to work. Where you need more capital, you allow capital to be employed so that there will be maximum efficiency for sustainability.
So let's look at Nigeria in particular. Where should the federal government focus more to achieve de-industrialization? We don't even have a vision. Let's call it that.
You know, Nigeria has attempted severally to encourage industrialization, and that is why Nigeria, under the parliament, with the supervision of the parliament, came out with an industrial bank. That industrial bank can help industrialize Africa, but only when right resources are put, only right information is given, only right protection of the investment is given. I cannot go to Bank of Industry and take a facility of 1 billion naira and then invest in an industry where I will be driven away by bandits. These are some of the things Nigerian government has to emphasize. There is provision. Let us know, you know, the infrastructure concession agency is formed by a former government of Muhammadu Buhari. These are good measures to help to create a better economic environment where you need a bridge, you have a bridge. Where you need to have a good road, you have a good road. Where you need to have good hospital, you have good hospital. These are some of the things. If government can compress all this and then put good policies and good information, definitely in Africa, and we must do it simultaneously. There is no way if you are speaking of African industrialization, if one nation is being given attention and others are not given attention, we are still going to face a lot of trouble, because of anytime you are recording efficiency, is you record efficiency by making connectivity. Africa as it is should borrow more from the European experience. The European experience, when Europeans decided to industrialize themselves, they all take their own efficiency. They check their efficiency and they check their models, but they do it with supervision and coordination, or you call it networking. And after networking, you find companies that are operating based on beverages. They still come to Africa to look for cocoa, but they come to Africa organized. They buy at the same price, they manufacture and sell at relatively the same price, so that to have that economic of scale.
Okay. So lastly, before we go on a short break, Nigeria as a country, President Tinubu, as of yesterday, stated that Nigeria and Africa would have the largest economy in the world. So with our challenges, our internal challenges, the security, the corruption, the lack of infrastructure, how realistic is that? And towards industrialization, where exactly can we head and focus on? You talked about leveraging on our strength.
Yes, we can achieve that by coming to our various economic bloc. Africa as a continent is too large to manage. Okay. But when we come back to our economic bloc, we come back to ECOWAS, let us look at ourselves. And that is why I disagree. I used to emphasize, I don't like trade barrier. I don't like. Africa, if we are to maintain and sustain efficiency, we come to our economic bloc, we check our potentials, and then we make the right investment. Go to East Africa, let them check what they have in capacity, not just mining precious stone and selling them in the world market. That shouldn't be our target for income. What should be our target is to generate, to be industrialized. And after being industrialized, and to look for market of our product. If we look for our market, there are potential buyers. There are things that is unique to Nigeria. If you take, for instance, this cap I'm wearing is only produced in Nigeria. Cap industry. When you make cap industry as a phenomenon, you organize the market, you take it, and you sell it, and you do the branding, you study other people's culture, and you now study the type of cap, and you sponsor it. Because some of the things that we use today are sponsored by other government, especially if it comes to fashion. The shoes we wear, the shoes our school children wear, the shoe industry. People invested there, and that is why today you find big names. Big names, they produce and make millions in seconds because they have created the scenario. Look at, for instance, even the table water. The table water, we have the best waters, spring waters. If we can make good investment and market it very well, and then try to make sure that we penetrate this good product in international market, especially, for instance, World Cup, Hajj program, this is a good source. If you can take, you liaise with Saudi Arabia, instead of liaising only on oil, place the spring waters of Plateau Jos is good, and you need to test it. Nigerian government can sponsor free bottles for each pilgrim for 1 day. But in the race of 30 days, they will buy. And then you recover your money. These are some of the ways Africa should try and organize ourselves, and we should not be so selfish. In Africa, our main problem is that I know that this is the right person to produce ABC, like Innocent Motors. Why are we emphasizing of CRB or ABC type of vehicle for our legislators? These are some of the things that we don't. This is a car industry. It is automobile industry. One of the best designers, Jelana Aliyu, that was born in Kaduna and Sokoto boy, is designing the best cars in the world.
We're not utilizing him.
But how many cars did Innocent allow Jelani to design for Innocent Motors? These are some of the things that are, but in this part of the world where they got all this talent, like Jelani Ali himself, he was surprised when he was employed by a United-based company. I don't want to mention the company. You understand? These are things whoever deserve
should be given the chance. True. We'll go on a short break. We'll come back for our tidbit segment with Malam Yusha Aliyu. Do stay tuned. For our tidbit segment with Malam Yusha Aliyu, you're going to explain to us African Continental Free Trade Agreement in layman terms.
All Africans are laymen.
True.
Continentally, they are laymen.
True.
Under trade barrier, they are laymen.
True.
So what Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement is saying is that before our independence, Africans engaged in trade. From the city of Kano to Bangui, there is no restriction. And that Kano man will go to Bangui and he would take product from Kano to Bangui, Central African Republic, and he will sell without taxation. The full secured. And with the benefit as a rich man. Many of the rich men in Kano undertake different trade engagement around Africa. Many of the Ghanaians took trade of kola nut and cocoa in different parts of Africa. So Africa now saw that that was a good advantage when we were not demarcated by the Europeans. So it is high time, after having independence, still we are creating unnecessary barriers. Some people that are even creating these double barriers, they created double barriers with dual citizenship. Yes.
So you benefit from that?
No. You have dual citizenship. Okay. Assuming I'm from Mubi, and there is Mubi in Nigeria and Mubi in Cameroon. Half of my families are living in Cameroon. So, and I will be part of creating barrier between these two people.
That's unsensible.
That's unsensible. So, and that was why the Africans now sat in 2018 and said, please come, we consume nearly the same product. We are consuming mostly from the Europeans and Asians. The total volume of trade of Africans, over $40 billion, is always going out for trading outside Africa, whereas we can do that trade among ourselves.
Keep the money here.
Keep the money, keep the jobs and the dollars here. So the Africans now decided in 2018 to put an agreement, and that agreement was signed by 54 African nations. These 54 African nations are all members of our Organization of African Unity. But 43 of them were more active. And that agreement is simply to develop policy measures, trade agreement, why we should remove trade barriers and allow our citizens to work. But do we have the facilities? We don't have. Then that same agreement include putting head together to develop the potential resources that can create networking of the African state. That is why today you have railway line from Kano to Niger Republic, and we're expecting that railway line from Niger to extend to Ghana. And we are expecting that same railway line to extend to Kenya, so that if I am taking my goods to Kenya, I can put them on a rail without any trade barrier, and I can go and sell them. Even if I produce local, even if it is a local production, some people are looking it far.
True.
Even if it is cheese production, if I can take it and protect it, they are waiting for it. And that is what brought about Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement or area. So in a nutshell, we are hoping that African leaders will be discussing this matter regularly, will be investing in this regularly, and will be sustaining the effort or the tempo for creating a trade-free economy. When you have a free trade economy, you will enjoy a lot of benefit.
True.
If it is tourism industry, if I need to go to Rwanda, for instance, to go and see waterfalls in Rwanda, if I have my savings for a year, if I take that savings, many Africans, if I go by rail, not by air,
True.
Any point I reach, an individual is benefiting from my savings,
Sure.
and I am keeping somebody's job. And when coming back too, I may likely have one aspect that I will also make money in that same trip, even videotaping,
True.
and then sending it through internet, and then marketing people's product online. You make money.
True.
So these are some of the things that we expect the Africa Continental Free Trade Area or Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement will do to Africans, because Africa they call it the dark continent, but it's the richest continent in the world. There is no mineral resources that Africa doesn't have.
No
there
wonder
is no human
everybody's
capacity that Africa doesn't have. It is the only country, it is the only continent in the world that has the Arabs, that have the white people, and they have the black people.
All in one.
All in one.
Malam Yusha Ali, thanks for that beautiful insight, and that's a very lucrative agreement, if you would agree with me. Thank you for being on Business Focus, and thanks for the tidbit for today.
Thank you very much.
We have come to the end of the program Business Focus for today. See you next time. Do take care. Have a good day.